Hey guys, Boy here, and today we're talking about the new technology Matumbaman's made Pudge. And don't even get me started saying this is not a new technology, alright? If something is not mainstream for 70 patches, it is a new technology, at least in my book. And I know what you're thinking. What are you doing, Bowie? Well, first, answer me. Do you like when you have a support Pudge in your team? Do you think that Pudge actually offers a lot as a support? The hero literally only got changes to become a better core. The hero has an HP regen passive. Have you ever seen support DK or support Timbersaw? Obviously not, that's a core skill for sustainable lanes. Base damage increase in a melee hero that has no move speed? How is that even worth for a support? You can ignore it all you want. IceFrog wants this hero to become a core, and if you don't believe me, come and watch Matumbaman crush a mid SF with Pudge. How, you might be thinking? Well, this hero has 94 base damage with Quelling Blade at level 1. So tell me how a level 1 Shadow Fiend can get CS here. More interestingly than that, it's Matumbaman's first skill. I did mention the HP regen passive in the beginning, but at level 1, he gets Rot. Shadow Fiend has no form of harass whatsoever on Matumba because of his shitty base damage. With Rot, his effective damage on creeps is even higher, and the end result very quickly is range creep denied and every CS picked up by him. He obviously gets the passive at level 2, but what might surprise you is the follow-up of Matumbaman's skill building basically every game he played. The cooldown reduction on Hook is amazing indeed, but using Hook constantly implies in having mana for it, and going for mana items like Bottom and Arcanes means either less mobility or less tankability in the early game. Rot costs no mana, and against heroes with no mobility like Shadow Fiend, as long as you're getting range, you can kill them. One of the best boots for Gap Close also gives armor, which is something Pudge really lacks, and that's about it. Level 4 Rot at level 7, and Phase Boots is what summarizes Matumbaman's playstyle. Slowly but surely, Matumbaman starts harassing the Shadow Fiend with Rot, and another item that Matumbaman constantly builds on Pudge is Buckler, sometimes even before Phase, like in this game. The item gives you 7 armor total for very little, and as we already talked about, this hero has awful armor. That extra armor is what allows him to still be ahead of SF in CS. The difference in damage mitigation from 0 armor to 8 is 33%. But yeah, that's not flashy. You want to know why Pudge not only wins lanes, but wins games. The reason Matumbaman didn't rotate it yet is the lack of phase boots. Level 1 Hook has a huge cooldown, meaning that his rotations are ultra unreliable if he does not land it, and they are hard to land. With move speed advantage, as long as you get close enough, any hero is dead because of Rot. Well, I did mention that hooks are unreliable, but there are reliable ways to land them. Cast points are one of them. Shadow Fiend doesn't know about this ward, and as he raises Matumbaman, he gets the hook with Dismember, and that's the first kill he gets. What I was referring to is this type of play. Witch Doctor is taking care of the lane after that kill, and Matumbaman pretends he's going to get the range CS. The Witch Doctor gets in position for a CS or a deny, and there you go. That's another kill, and a deny on top of it. So I did talk about the core of Matumbaman's way of playing Pudge is maxing Rot at level 7 and getting phase boots, but his build actually alters pretty much every single game besides that. In this game, for instance, he goes Atos, and if you think about it, we were talking about the unreliability of Hook. Atos solves that, and thus, he starts maxing the spell after the item is done. And this here is Matumba's first rotation. Pay attention how he never goes to the river. By having the height advantage, he has vision advantage, and he can get a clutch hook on the Shadow Fiend. He also does not dismember, even though he has the range and the means to do so. Venge is there, and she's level 6, so he waits for the disable, and as the animation for Magic Missile gets used, then he uses the Dismember, getting another kill. By going Phase Boots, Atos, and Buckler, you are lacking 2 things, HP and mana regen. It makes a lot of sense not to max Hook until the passive is maxed, to deal with the HP regen problems, and also the fact that they actually buffed the hell out of Dismember, but we'll talk more about that later. Even without the Atos though, Matumbaman can get a lot of kills. Matumbaman doesn't have vision of the Witch Doctor here, so he walks up to the Shadow Fiend, and only after the cask bounces, he uses the Dismember and can follow up to more targets. When Matumbaman finishes his Atos, he actually doesn't use it straight up. He had a ton of opportunities, including this one. For instance, Shadow Fiend has no cancel, which means he could probably solo kill the Treant, but he would take an insane amount of damage from Shadow Fiend while at it. He waits for the Treant to disengage a little bit, and then he goes for the Shadow Fiend, an easier kill when he has vision of multiple heroes in the map. He doesn't get the kill, but he forces 4 heroes metal. Pudge has a lot of strengths, and a lot of people think of this hero as a ganker per se, but I don't think that role fits today's meta. This hero lanes very well against most heroes. He can build whatever item you can imagine, he offers follow-up from odd angles, and he frontlines very well. Matumba often goes for Crimson Guard as his first item. It follows up the early buckler nicely, and there's a fair amount of minus armor and physical damage on the dire side. The biggest thing when playing mid Pudge is being aware of the disables you're facing. Very rarely Matumbaman dismembers instantly, especially when there are heroes nearby. He knows Venge is there, so he doesn't bother. But he gets the kill anyways. When he goes for the Shadow Fiend, the swap actually sets up a beautiful Winter's Curse, not only allowing him to survive, but giving him another kill later. This hero got a huge buff on Dismember. His level 3 Dismember damage went from 60% of strength to 90%. The way this hero scales is surviving fights and not only getting tankier, but getting more damage. That's why items like Crimson, Atos are very common for Matumba, instead of things like Blink Dagger, which he goes for sometimes but doesn't give you any stats and doesn't allow you to survive those fights. Another big strength of Pudge is his low cooldowns. Dismember is great at picking heroes off, and after getting a great fight middle and pushing a tower, he can kill another hero just like that, while scaling at the same time. But sure, that Shadow Fiend was not a great player, Matumba is rank 10, he can win with anything, right? Sure, but what about a Monkey King middle? What about a Monkey King middle that is also a rank 50 player? Is that enough of a challenge for you to consider mid-Pudge viable? Because that's exactly the replay we're going to watch now. His initial items changed this game. Monkey King, unlike Shadow Fiend, has a ton of physical damage from level 1, so early ring is a great way to increase his EHP in 10% by only spending 175 gold. This matchup is all about drawing aggro, as you might have imagined. Pudge cannot trade against this hero at all, and at least he has way better base damage than Monkey King, so as long as he draws aggro, he might be able to get CS. By constantly doing that, he shifts the creep equilibrium from pretty bad to now acceptable, making sure that Monkey King will take tower damage if he wants to get Jingle stacks now. When he goes for it, look how the level 1 hook pays great dividends in this game. Usually, Rod level 1 is not that great versus Monkey King because he attacks from outside the AoE of it, so in this game, the hook actually allows him to almost kill the Monkey King. Yes, he dies, but he actually did amazing there. Monkey King also got greedy thinking that he was fine, and he dies when the Pudge comes back. While armor is great versus Monkey King, move speed is also great, and even though he bought out the Buckler recipe while dying, he goes boots before finishing the item. While the order of the skill build changed at the beginning, he pretty much follows the same pattern this game. One thing that Matumbaman remind me of is a low-key use of illusion runes. You can draw aggro with them, and so, even though Matumbaman shouldn't be able to draw aggro in this position without taking a shit ton of damage, the illusions can, and he gets CS that a worse player wouldn't get or would die for. Matumba starts winning his lane when Radiant forces a rotation middle. Since he keeps drawing aggro to CS, he is already in a relatively safe position once the Rasta decides to dive. He eats his way through the trees but goes back knowing that his team's TPing for this, so he walks towards their direction, and since he does that and perfectly gets the salve off after the attack, not only he survives but he kills the Monkey King. From that ring of protection, to the salve, to drawing aggro for every CS, every single decision aligning to give him this turnaround. Last game, we mentioned that he took some time to rotate because his phase boots took a while to get ready, but in this game, he uses the chainmail for phase boots instead. Not only having more move speed versus Monkey King is important, he doesn't want to stay in that lane for longer anyways because the Monkey King can just destroy him. As soon as he handles the siege creep, he's ready to rotate bottom. First, because they are all low HP, and second, because he has a great ward there. Note that Matumbaman always avoids using hook when he can get a kill in a different way, especially early on when the cooldown is insanely high and his mana is prohibitive. By saving that mana, he will get other kills. This is another scenario where a player would be tempted to blind hook, but since he knows there's no vision on him since the Shadow Demon ran up the high ground, he keeps chasing, getting a double with Dismember. He doesn't end there though, he fake backs, and knowing that Shadow Demon was there, he never used hook or Dismember. He gets another kill, and as he disengages, he only uses Dismember after Shackles and Disruption getting used. A good Shadow Shaman player level 3 will never have hacks learned, but they had pressed the attack and unfortunately he dies. That being said, counting the Wraith King being bottom at the beginning, he forced Radiant's entire team there, whilst he got 3 kills, and his carry is farming, so definitely space created here. In this game, instead of the Atos, Matumbaman opted for Crimson Guard first item. Not only they have the Skeletons, the Monkey King, the Legion, they also have Press the Attack and Disruption to mess with the Atos. This is another great fight that seems normal until you try to understand Matumbaman's decision making. He gets engaged here and never attempts to Dismember. Hacks and Duo were used, Boundless gets used, and then Shackles, and as soon as Press the Attack gets committed on Monkey King, he can Dismember the Rasta with no fear. It might feel small, but throughout every engagement, you can clearly see how much emphasis Matumbaman puts in getting good Dismembers off. With the buff to Dismember actually doing more damage now, you want to make sure that skill actually is used to its full potential. If you think that the Buckler is dumb or that Phase Boots is dumb, this fight right here is the perfect example of why it's great. He starts the fight with 500 HP. Shadow Shaman was nearby, and while he cancels the Dismember, Dire was baiting Matumba, and since he has 17 armor instead of 2 that Pudge usually has, not only he lives with 20 HP, but he kills the Monkey King. Unfortunately, he was not close enough to get the passive stack, but since Monkey King has OP frog attack range, that was probably a smart decision anyways. Eventually, Dire's pushing bottom whilst Legion is chasing Juggernaut, and keep watching Matumba's decision making. He had a long time to TP, in the fog, and maybe no one would know about it, but this is a high MMR game and Radiant could be watching him and give the call to Legion Commander disengaging. Only when the duo comes out and Radiant fully committed, he reacts. Radiant wastes Serpent Wards, they don't kill the Juggernaut, and the fight keeps evolving to a point where Monkey King also wastes the Wukong's command. Duo is on cooldown, Dismember was used, Shadow Shaman is not there yet, so he can Dismember, and that's it. That being said, Radiant actually gets out of control when they start winning a lot of fights in this game. The item progression Matumba goes for is Force Staff into Radiance, and the reason Radiance is a good item on Pudge relates to why he also needs armor. Heroes like Dragonite, Nakes, and Conquer constantly go Radiance because they are super tanky, meaning the Radiance damage will be meaningful throughout fights because they will last for a long time, but also because they have a shit ton of HP. That 17% evasion means 500 extra HP on a 3000 HP Pudge against physical attacks, which Radiant has a lot of, on top of the damage and his lifesteal talent that works greatly with the raw talent and all of your skills. Watch this base defense when Radiance was not even done yet. They have no Ravage, 2 heroes dead, and Matumba is so patient. Even if he hooks someone here, it's unlikely he'll get a kill, but when Radiant disengages, that's the perfect timing to go, especially because Clockwork is about to respawn. Low MMR players love to force fights when they are losing racks and they have dead heroes or no important cooldowns, but that's just asking for you to lose another fight and then lose more racks. Shadow Demon ends up using Disruption here, Legion disengages, and that's the time to go, and that's also the first kill. Clock gets a beautiful hook shot, killing the Shadow Demon, forcing a Shadow Shaman buyback, and while Dire loses their racks, they get a lot in return thanks to Matumba's patience. They end up winning the game, even though they lose top as well, and they are super far behind in net worth. What happens here is that Matumba drags a double damage to the Juggernaut, and they get Roshan. Another great benefit of having a Pudge is how well he handles super and even mega creeps. With so much armor, damage block, and lifesteal, he can easily handle the Silence, and Matumba's Shiva's Guard gets ready as they initiate on the Wraith King middle. Watch this fight very closely. Monkey King shows up, Shadow Shaman buys back, and the only hero besides Matumbaman here is Jugger, that has the Aegis. So instead of brute forcing a Dismember that could be easily cancelled, he retreats a bit after giving his team the Crimson Guard. 3 BKBs were used on Radiant, and that's definitely the time to punish them, and they win. Alright, so this is the last replay I will mention, and it showcases Matumbaman versus another mid hero, this time an Ember Spirit. He's back with the initial items of the first game, and he starts with the passive, showing 3 different level 1 openers in 3 different replays. While you can burn Flame Guard with Rot, it also means you'll take a lot of damage for it, not making it worth your time, so the HP regen makes sense to compensate for the harass since Pudge is a melee hero. This is a fairly different game in terms of picks as well. Matumbaman doesn't bother with that buckler we saw, since Radiant deals mostly magic damage. As the laning stage progresses, you can clearly see that Pudge also wins this lane because of his obnoxious base damage and sustain, but unfortunately he doesn't have that much kill potential on Ember if he maxes Flame Guard, at least unless the Ember misplays. You can see him pressuring the Pudge a lot, but it's Matumba that gets the first kill in this lane, and you will see how. That's definitely not how. The way you can kill Ember is forcing Flame Guard, and that's what he does when he starts slowing him down with double damage here. Matumba obviously cannot easily break through Flame Guard level 3. It will take him 4 seconds against creeps, while he loses a lot of HP. So he disengages, while he also positions close to the camp he sees the Ember farming to leech experience to make sure he's gonna get level 6 before him. He does get level 6, but Flame Guard gets ready again, but once he realizes Morph is dead and he has vision of 2 heroes top, he goes for it anyways. That's not a kill, but it's the beginning of one. With the self being ready, and by abusing the tech animation of Ember, he gets a hook, and even though Ember has level 6, he dies because his Remnant is pretty slow and he apparently had no mana for it. Matumba goes first item pipe this game, and this time he gets a Blink Dagger. That's a great item versus all the slippery heroes in Radiant. He follows that up with the standard Radiance, and hopefully this video was enough to convince you that mid Pudge is actually way better than support Pudge. And guys, thank you very much for liking, commenting, and subscribing. At the moment, because of all the time I'm taking playing Dota and casting, the YouTube algorithm hates me, and my revenue is extremely compromised. I did mention it last time. I'm only getting 20% of what I was getting before. Any help towards my Patreon is awesome, and if you cannot do that, make sure to promote this video, give feedback so I can make it better, and also follow me on social media so we can keep this sustainable for both of us. A lot of people were asking about the second part of that Naga video, and that's kind of unfortunate because that Naga video took me 5 days to make. So a lot of research, and unfortunately, most of the videos that I research a lot never get a lot of viewers because Naga is not a popular hero, not everyone wants to learn Naga. And I don't know when I'm gonna be able to make the second part of that because there's no tournaments I want to cast this week. I'm trying to make as many videos as possible to hopefully improve my financial situation a little bit. And I apologize, but hopefully in the future the video will come out. If you want to participate in next videos, make sure to follow me on Twitter because I'll always ask for replay IDs there. And that's it. Thank you very much, guys. Bye.